I tracked my habits for 90 days straight last year, and this is what it looked like. So I have the habits listed up here, and I know this is really hard to read, so just bear with me. I hope you can at least see the check marks because that's the most important part of what I'm going to be explaining. But this is the date that corresponds to each day where I was tracking the habits, and this is for February, this is for March, and then this is for April. So just on first glance, you can probably tell that the check marks are pretty solid for like the first 7 days. So I was pretty consistent, and then all of a sudden I completely fell off for the rest of February here. And then for March, it's kind of similar case where I only stuck with like 2 habits for most of the month. And then for April, it was almost like I just decided to quit halfway through the month here. So the point is that I wasn't able to stay consistent for the entire 90 days with every single habit, but I did learn 3 specific things that I wanted to share in this video. The first point is the idea of building momentum. So what I mean by that is if I show you here the habits that I was able to stay consistent with for the first 7 days, it's kind of crazy how all of a sudden I go from this perfect streak, almost, well, close to perfect streak. I didn't drink water, which is what this habit was for the 7 days. I didn't track how much water I was drinking, so I didn't check that off, but I was pretty much crushing it for the rest of the habits that I had. But then all of a sudden I drop off, and then it becomes like this hodgepodge of like check marks here. So when I think back to why was I able to stay so consistent in these first 7 to 8 days, the reason is because every single day I would wake up and then just force myself to complete the first habit, which was taking a cold shower. And then that would increase the chances of me completing the next habit. So it went from like a 50% chance of me completing the second habit on average to going up to like 90% if I had completed the first habit prior to that. So then if I completed the second habit, then it would be a 95% chance or so that I'd complete the third habit. Now, these numbers are arbitrary, but the point is that the percentage, the probability that I would complete the next habit within this sequence would increase, and then by the end of the day, it would be like almost like a complete 100% guarantee that I would complete the last habit because I had built up that momentum over time. Now, the idea of momentum that's really interesting to me is that it's basically like a snowball effect or like a domino effect, but it can go in either direction. So if I decided not to start my day off with a cold shower, which is what happened here, then it actually creates a snowball effect in the opposite direction where I just start to do bad habits repeatedly, and that causes this sporadic kind of state that I was in here where I was only doing habits like when I just decided to feel like it, and it wasn't because I was starting off my day on the right foot. So that's the first point that I wanted to mention, why it's so important to start your day off with just choosing one habit to do and choosing something that's relatively difficult so that it makes it a lot easier for you to just complete that next habit and so on and so forth. And the second point is this idea of getting back on track. So if I go back to here and show you this day, like the 9th day, when I decided to take a cold shower later in the day, I decided, oh, just because, I didn't do the habits in the morning, like I feel like I can write off the rest of the day and start off fresh the next day. That was absolutely the worst thing that I could have done for myself, because that's what caused me to completely fall off and stay in that state of that snowball effect in the opposite direction, where I started to just forget about the habits that I had to do, or just made up excuses for why I wasn't going to do them just because of the one day where I decided to not get back on track. So the point is that if I decided on that day to get back on track, like if I had just told myself, like, even though I started my first habit later in the day, I still have the rest of the day where I can actually complete these habits, but it's not going to be at the exact time that, or around the same time that I would usually complete it at. So the point is, when you see yourself veering away from the path that you're on, you have to get back on as soon as possible. Just as soon as you get that reminder that, okay, I didn't go to the gym at like 9 a.m., but it's 7 p.m. and the gym is still open, I can go to the gym and get it done, and then, focus on the next habit, which could be meditation for you, or, meal prepping for the next day, whatever the case may be. Just putting yourself back on that path as soon as possible is so important, because that's what would have saved me and made this month so much better, and then April so much better as well, if I had just decided to get back on track. So that's another thing that I learned. And then finally, the third point is the idea of embodying a new identity. Now, what I mean by that is it's very similar to what James Clear talks about in Atomic Habits, where you have to assume that you are the person that you want to become. So, for example, if you want to work out more, you can say, I'm an athlete, because an athlete will work out. But the problem that I think most people may have with this is like they feel like they're lying to themselves. And what I want to say about that point is that you're also lying to yourself if you say that you're a lazy person or you don't work out, because that's just the story you're telling yourself. So it's actually more useful for you to say something like, I am somebody who enjoys working out, even if you don't really enjoy it just yet, because over time, if you keep telling yourself that and then you keep going to the gym, you will find a way to make the workout more enjoyable, or you'll just naturally just start to enjoy it because you're starting to believe what you're telling yourself. So it's actually more useful for you to tell yourself that I am a runner, I am somebody who eats healthy, I am an athlete, because over time you'll start to actually believe that, instead of believing these false narratives that have been imposed upon you by, your parents, society, whatever the case may be, because those are old patterns that keep running in the back of your mind. So that's the third point that I wanted to mention. So just to recap here, the first point is to remember how important momentum is, and the importance of building momentum in the right direction, which is in the direction that you want to go in. That's, towards the goals that you've set. So building momentum with the positive habits by starting off your day with a good habit instead of building momentum in the opposite direction with negative habits is something that I'm still trying to incorporate into my daily routine now. So that's the first point. The second point is to get back on track when you feel yourself starting to veer off. Even if it's late in the day, you can still start that habit chain. Like, for example, for me, if I took the cold shower at 5 p.m. and told myself, almost convinced myself it was 5 a.m., then I would have done the meditation that followed and then the workout that followed after that. But I just decided to write off that day because I'm like, oh, I'm already halfway through and I didn't do the habits in the morning. That's going to set you back in terms of progress, and you're going to end up with something like this, and you don't want to end up like this because it feels really bad to look back at it and realize that you're only consistent for 8 days. So that's the second point. And then finally, the third point, embody the identity of the person that you want to become, because that will make the habits not only easier for you to do, but it'll also make them more enjoyable, because that's just part of who you are. It's just something that you do and you enjoy doing it. So it's just a win-win overall. So I hope that was helpful. And if you haven't given habit tracking a shot, I highly recommend it. And if you have tried it out, drop a comment below. Let me know what your experience was. I'd love to, hear a little bit more about what your takeaways were from your own attempt at doing this. And thank you again for watching. I really hope that whatever state you're in, if you're someone who's on top of their habits, keep crushing it. But if you're someone who's in a rut like I was when I started doing this, I just want you to know you will get past that point. And if you're going through something difficult right now, just remember that this time will pass, and believe in yourself. I believe in you. You can overcome anything, and life is only going to keep getting better, and you're going to keep building momentum in the right direction. So hope you have a fantastic day, fantastic week, and I will see you in the next vid. So peace.